Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Numbers chapter 30, the Lord is impressing upon the people just how important it is for them to keep their vows. And if a person made a vow, they were supposed to keep it, and they were bound to that vow. The only exception was a woman in perhaps her father's household, if she was still young and in her father's household, or just in her father's household in general. Her father could annul a vow that she made. If she was married, her husband could annul a vow that she gave. And so a woman had an opportunity in certain circumstances to not have to keep a certain vow that she made, especially if she made a rash vow and either the father or the husband recognized that it was a rash vow and releases her from the obligation of that vow. We might wonder, why is this put in the law? Why is it that the woman can find release from the obligation of the vow and not a man or a son or a husband or something like that? And I think if we think about it within the context of Israel's circumstance, we can see perhaps why the Lord directs this towards the woman. Time and time again, Israel is seen as God's wife, in a sense, in a relationship, in the idea of the relationship that he had with her. This is brought out time and time again within the scope of the prophets, especially when the Lord is speaking against the sins of Israel and seeing her as an adulterous wife, that sort of thing. But when it comes to the relationship between God and Israel, it's seen as kind of as a husband to a wife. We see this in the church as well with Christ. In Ephesians chapter 5, we see that Christ basically plays the role of the husband, and the church plays the role of the wife in the relationship that we have with him. And so when we think about it in terms of that, and then we think about what Israel had done at Mount Sinai, we can see perhaps where this would relate. In Mount Sinai, in Exodus chapter 24, the people made a vow. Israel, as a people, made a vow to the Lord to keep all of his commandments. In Exodus 24, in verse 7, it says, "Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, 'All that the Lord has spoken, we will do, and we will be obedient.'" Basically, they vowed to keep the book of the covenant and to keep all the commandments and the laws of the Lord. And this was a rash vow. Little did they know it would be virtually impossible for them to keep all the commandments of the Lord. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All of us have gone astray. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. And none of us can keep God's law perfectly. Yet there, they vowed to do that very thing. And so the only one who can release them of that vow would be God himself. And God accepted the vow that they gave, all the while knowing that they couldn't keep their part of the vow, but with a promise that later on, he would allow them to be freed from this vow by he himself taking on the death, the penalty of them not keeping that vow through Jesus Christ on the cross. And so eventually they would find release from this vow, but until that point, they were obligated to keep the vow. They were obligated to keep the commandments of the Lord, to uphold the covenant that they had made with God at Sinai. And it wasn't until Christ came onto the scene that they were released from that vow, and they would find forgiveness and they would find acceptance before God. And so this Numbers chapter 30 is kind of a snapshot or a picture of this, in which, yes, there are cases in which the woman could be freed from the vow that she made, but it's only going to be through her husband. And the same thing was true with Israel and the vow that she made in connection to her husband, which is seen as God. And we can be thankful that through Jesus Christ, we are allowed a relationship with God without keeping all the commandments of the law. None of us could shoulder that burden of keeping all the commandments of the law. But through Jesus Christ, we have forgiveness, we have release from the law, we have grace and mercy, in the eyes of God. And we come to the Lord not vowing to keep all the commandments, but actually admitting that we can't keep all the commandments, that we've sinned and we need forgiveness. And so we come to the Lord seeking the forgiveness that is found in Jesus Christ, and we find acceptance to God, before God, through the working of Jesus Christ, with a sanctified life in mind. We got to keep that in mind. Shall we sin that grace may abound? God forbid. We died with Christ in committing our life to Christ so that we could walk in newness of life before him. But still, at the same time, we have the forgiveness of sins. And when we fall short and when we don't quite measure up to the standard that God has given us, we still have the means of cleansing through Jesus Christ, as 1 John chapter 1 talks about. So let's be thankful that God has given us another way. He's given us a way towards life, in a way that we can find forgiveness and mercy and grace, as opposed to trying to approach him through law, which is, like I said, virtually impossible. So let's praise God for that today. Let's lean on the Lord. Let's lean on his forgiveness and his mercy, and let that be inspiration for us to want to live a holy life, to want to go out and serve the Lord, because he's done so much for us and he has extended so much grace and mercy in our way. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.